Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clockedin with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Clockedin with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a special guest today here. We have Brent Dusing. He's currently the CEO and founder of TruPlay, a gaming platform created to bring high quality, fun, and biblically sound entertainment to audiences worldwide. He is a serial entrepreneur, and previously he founded and was CEO of Sellfire. Dusing created a nation's leading mobile coupon company used today at grocers like Safeway and Kroger, and leading to Catalina Marketing to acquire Sellfire for $108 million, which is just incredible. Brent, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jordan. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here on Clocked In. And so tell me, Brent, where does your story start?
Yeah, I grew up in Springfield, Missouri. Went to college on the East Coast and started out in actually working in venture in 2001. So it was right in the middle of the dot-com crash. So you might remember the stock market peaked in March of 2000. And then there was this that was kind of the top of the dot-com bubble, Web 1.0. Started to kind of slowly decline and then a steep drop on September 11th. So I started my first job in Silicon Valley on September 4th, 2001. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it was actually as bad as that sounds. I was 23 years old, right? Starting my first job at a big time venture firm in Silicon Valley. But it was a good time to start because the firm had raised its fund, and very few other firms were investing. And so you got to learn how to invest based on core principles. So here's what I mean by that. In the dot-com era, there was a lot of hype. It was how many eyeballs you have. If you don't give me a term sheet right now, I'll go down the road 2 hours and get another term sheet. So you're kind of investing on fear and chasing deals and this lemming base. A lot of people did that. So I come into the game, I'm young, and you have to learn how it works. And you learn, okay, we're actually going to invest on, quality of teams. How big is the market? What kind of market traction do they have? Who are their customers? Why? Now that might seem like obvious questions, but when you're young and you're kind of learning how to invest in the venture asset class, which is a different form of investing than, for example, just, buying public stocks. There are different questions that you need to be asking. There are different things you need to be looking at. And I was able to learn because of the downturn in a more methodical way than I would have if it was just, chasing hype in 1999. So anyway, started out there, brought in some good deals for the firm. About the time I was 26, at 2005, most people at the time had cell phones. I know it's be hard for some people to remember. There was a day before there was an iPhone. And the iPhone launched in the middle of 2007, and then the App Store not until a year later. I know that's hard to. It's kind of like thinking the world, used to have black and white, cameras and movies, but these days did exist. And so we, my co-founder and I, he was this brilliant guy, Preston Tollinger, out of NASA. He was working at NASA Ames on the Mars rover.
So Brent, for you, what allowed you to kind of have that awareness of, hey, like the venture isn't for me, or venture?
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to go do and go build. And so I think some people enjoy picking investments and choosing people to back, and other people enjoy kind of doing the building and the creating and the leading. And I realized that I wanted to build and lead and create, and I saw opportunity versus, when you're a venture person, you have to kind of wait for someone else to see the opportunity to invest in them. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you can just go straight at it. And so, so I was at this venture firm, realized there was this massive opportunity to advertise on mobile phones. The premise was, look, wherever there's a screen, there'll be an ad. And my co-founder was a friend who was working at the NASA Ames on the Mars rover, literally was working on the Mars rover.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Brilliant guy, Preston Tollinger. And so of course, he was a CTO, I was a CEO, and we went and figured it out. And so the idea was, if we can create a form of advertising that people actually seek out, because if you think about it, your willingness to watch an ad shrinks as screen size decreases, right? So in a movie theater, you'll watch previews. In fact, people get there to watch previews early, right?
Yeah.
TV, sure, you'll sit through some commercials, but computer ads, right? At the time, back to 2004, 2005, banner ads were kind of annoying, and you try to get out of there so you can see the content you want. So we figured there's a big advertising opportunity for cell phones, but it's not going to be, we're going to need to make it value. In other words, if we just pop ads up all the time, people are going to get sick of it because it's a small screen and it's an intimate, your phone's a more intimate experience than the movie theater. And so we sought out a form of advertising that there's a few forms of advertising people actually seek out. One of them is coupons, right? Deals, discounts, values. So that's how Selfire was birthed. And anyway, long story short, we wound up doing deals with Kroger and Safeway. In fact, the first time a mobile phone was plugged into a point of sale system wirelessly, we did that with Kroger in 2007 in Atlanta, and basically wound up growing that business and running in grocery stores, thousands of stores all across the country, and also it was kind of cool to be able to provide deals and values for people. There's a lot of families, of course, all around the world who are on a budget, so to be able to help people find and get discounts and provide value to families was kind of a cool thing too.
Yeah, I love how you have that perspective, because many times we only see hey, we had a huge deal, we partnered with Kroger, this is incredible, let's do this, and it's me, instead of what's the customer really getting from this? And it's a value add to them the entire time, because instead of spending $4 on Oreos, they're getting them for $3.50 or 2 for 1 or whatever it is. Right. It's a real value add there, which is awesome. And when you guys were making that leap and really starting to gain traction, were you guys concerned about running out of money? Were you raising money? Was any of that a question?
We raised, I guess, 4 rounds of money that I can remember. I think a seed and then a series. I think it was a series A, B, and C. But it's look, as a tech entrepreneur, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you're building, every great technology product that anybody uses was funded in the same exact way that most tech entrepreneurs finance their companies, because unless you're selling a service, you've got to build a product, and to build a product, you've got to have more capital, capital to build that actual product before you can get it to market. And so then you wind up kind of raising, typically the way rounds work are, there's money to kind of get started. There's money to kind of build the early product and validate. There's money to kind of build early traction. And then there's oftentimes expansion rounds later on down the road as the company, grows. So you continue to grow and gain traction and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And when did you know that you were really onto something there? Because I feel like there's so much of the time, it sounds like you had a great job. It sounds like your co-founder had a great job, and you're kind of taking a leap of faith going, let's do this thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll actually, I'll share this with your listeners. We took a very methodical approach to new opportunities. So I would advise, for people who want to be an entrepreneur, especially in the tech space, I give maybe a couple things. One is find somebody who you trust, but that has a different skill set than you. So the worst co-founder relationships are people who have opposite values to you and the same skill sets. The best are the same skill set. Sorry, the best are the same values, but the opposite skills. So in other words, if you are an ethical person, if you are ethical and you partner with someone who's completely dishonest, that's going to be a hard partnership to make work. It doesn't last very long. If you have the same skill set as somebody, you're both going to be trying to do each other's jobs. But Preston and I had a high degree of trust with each other. And we also had a high degree of, very different skill sets. So mine is, speaking, presenting, leadership, the financial side, the marketing strategy, those kind of things. I had a vision for what the product should be, but he was the one who was able to develop and code and, produce and figure out how we were going to do it. Because I'll say, I know putting an app on the App Store today is very straightforward, but in 2005, there was J2ME, there was Brew, there was the BlackBerry OS, Microsoft had smartphones. I mean, it was a different world. So you couldn't just write one app and make it work for phones all across the world. We literally had hundreds of devices we had to configure. And so there are different operating systems. And then with those operating systems, different configurations. We literally, it's a funny story. We hired a young woman who's now, she was right out of college at the time and now has a very successful career. Natalie Wynn, if you're listening, this one's for you. We hired her right out of school, right out of San Jose State. And we had to have her bring in, women have like on your doors, you hang shoes. So you put like these multiple slots where you hang your shoes. So she literally brought in these plastic shoe hangers. So we had a closet where we had to put every single device in because we had to make sure the phone ran, or the software ran on those phones and then test them. Right. So anyway, it was cool because she was kind of doing she was doing QA for us. And it was one of those things like, you've got to kind of figure out ways to make it work, even when it's kind of comical. So we realized, to answer your question, Jordan, when we were onto something, because I'm sorry, we just knew it. I mean, it just was obvious that there's always going to be places to advertise. The hardest thing, I know it sounds crazy to your listeners, but in 2005, it was getting people to understand what downloading something on your phone meant. So literally the conversation was like this. It was like, well, hey, we're doing a mobile advertising play. And so I went to this conference, this big marketing conference, and these are, legitimate professional marketing people. They go, oh, mobile marketing. You mean like driving with a truck and having a sign on the back of the truck advertising? Well, no, that's not what I mean. Well, wait, you mean like on the cell phone? So you're going to call me and tell me where the deal is? Like they just didn't have this concept of having a wallet with deals where you could save money. And so, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounded like a lot of education. And for me, I feel like I'm going through a similar thing as you. Like I'm doing it with the Web3 where it's you learn about it and then you explain it further, which I know we're going to get to a little bit later. But it sounds like it's crazy because it takes so long for people to get acquainted to it. And then they're like, oh, I know what that is. That's no big deal. And by that point, you're already too late.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess maybe to finish the thought on kind of starting a business and some couple tips. So one tip is find someone you can trust with different skill set than you did. Second one was because I had a co-founder, we held each other accountable. So I think one of the biggest reasons people don't become entrepreneurs is they don't have the discipline to take the first steps. That old Chinese proverb, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first few steps. Most companies never start because they never take the first few steps. So what was cool was we were both working, but we meet on a consistent basis. It was maybe every 2 or 3 weeks at my house. I had a whiteboard. I still have the whiteboard we started the company on. And it was like, okay, you come with an idea. I owe at least one idea and you owe at least one idea. And there's no ego. It doesn't matter if it's my idea or your idea. We're going to come, we're going to talk through it, and then we're going to walk away with action steps. So we talked, we had a few different ideas. Self-fire wasn't our first one, but we did a fair amount of validation, talking to potential, retailers we could advertise with. He needed to do some coding work to see what was possible, what could be done. Because at the time we were really pushing the boundaries of what you could really run on cell phones as an updatable software program that was downloaded through the carrier app stores.
Yeah. And I love the fact that it sounds like you didn't just jump head into it, be like, oh, we're startup guys now. It's like you validated and you check these different ideas, because a majority of the time that's the biggest issue is someone thinks there's an idea, but they haven't checked it against anybody else. And they just start building their idea without their customers in mind.
Yes. Yeah. Again, you really need to spend the time figuring out who your audience is and who your customer is and why, what are their reasons for buying? Because, the last thing you want to do is build a product you think is cool that nobody else in the world really needs.
Absolutely. So then you end up exiting Sellfire. How did that come about?
I mean, look, Sellfire had all these grocers all across the country using it, and the customers were actually consumer product goods companies. So General Mills was our first major CPG customer, CPG meaning consumer packaged goods. And they at the time, I think this is still true, were the second largest CPG company in the country. And a really innovative guy who was over there, Carl Schmidt, found us. And we did a deal with them as our first CPG customer, got the grocers involved. And so we had a bunch of other CPG companies on board. We had wireless carriers. The other thing I guess I should back up a step on. This is so strange, I know, but the way it used to work was if you wanted to run an app on a cell phone, you had to go negotiate with each wireless carrier. I know that's nuts, but it's true. And so we had to go do deals. There were the 12 biggest wireless carriers at the time. We did deals with 11 of them. There was one we didn't get, and I'm not going to say who, but it's interesting though. Verizon, for example, wound up investing. They were a last round investor, and so it wound up being the mobile carriers because they were it was for them a way to innovate, a way to make some revenues as well. So it was kind of a win-win situation for the carriers. So ultimately you build enough value, you get enough consumers using the thing, and people get interested in buying it.
Absolutely. So you end up selling, incredible, and now your life's amazing. And where does it lead you to next? Like what?
Well, the company that I did after Sellfire was called Lightside, and so at Lightside we saw all these games on Facebook that were taken off. You might remember the days of Farmville, right?
Yeah.
So we build explicitly biblical games, Journey of Jesus, Journey of Moses, Stained Glass, that were kind of in more of that Farmville style. So, you weren't milking cows, but the idea of building these web-based games that told stories. And so when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of creative writing. And I also used to make some board games that my friends actually enjoyed playing. In fact, one of my best friends, who I just saw a few days ago, we still talk about that, like playing the board games and stuff that I'd make as a kid. And so it was always a creative interest I had. And what was fascinating to me, everything that changed in video games was that, to back up a second, when I was a kid, the Nintendo came out, right? The first Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers and Zelda, I believe it was 1985 or 86. And no, it would have been 85 because Zelda came out in 86. So it was, the Nintendo was to video games what the first Star Wars movies were to movies. It was not an improvement. It was a massive step function. It was the difference between a propeller airplane and a jet, right? And so, so the Nintendo, everyone in my generation grew up, late Gen X, grew up with a Nintendo in their house. And then, of course, for all of us younger than that, it just became a standard part of our culture, right? Was games, right?
Yeah.
But what video games really meant by the time the late 2000s and the early 10s rolled around, what it really was buying a cartridge and putting it in the machine. Yes, there started to be things like PC gaming, but what really changed was when, I believe this, as far as I understand the story, Zynga and Slide and a few of the other social gaming companies kind of copied some of the monetization mechanics that they were seeing happen in East Asia, particularly in Japan, to do in-app purchases. So, you would buy things using coins, using your credit card, buy a few coins, buy some things inside the game, so you could get people to play the game for free. So what was cool about that was then you could build a game as an online service, and you could continue to improve the game to continue to make it more interesting for people, rather than, if you shipped a Nintendo cartridge, once you stamped it and shipped it, that was it, right? There was no changing or updating.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing about this is that when I was growing up, by the time I was playing, I kind of paused video games. I didn't really do the in-app purchase. Like that wasn't around, but I had some friends who were really into in-app purchases because when COVID hit, they started playing a lot of Madden, and to build out the team, you had to buy the characters. And they were like, dude, I got the game for $50. I probably spent $250 on these characters because I want the good team. And you sit there and you like bring this all together and you're like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and with Modern Warfare 2, people like Call of Duty, people are buying the skins. Why? Because they want to look cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you any better or anything. It's you're 100% on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that really changed because of social gaming that was, again, pioneered by Zynga and Slide and Playdom and some of those guys, what was fascinating is that it opened up a whole new audience. So what happened was in the mid 2000s, people who ran the portals, remember the portals like Yahoo, right? If you remember the days of Yahoo, they would find a lot of mothers and grandmothers would be playing solitaire online during the day. But all they could do to monetize was pump ads at them because you can't really monetize solitaire online. And so then when Zynga started with Farmville, they realized, oh my gosh, we can build game mechanics that women enjoy. Because traditionally, games started out as, adventure, action, Mario, Zelda, right? Like you mentioned, Madden, the original Madden, so with sports, fighting, shooting, testosterone-driven experiences, right?
Yeah.
But then when they saw the advent of things like solitaire, then they started to see, okay, wait, there's a big audience for women gaming as well, but things more like, like Farmville, I'm like the Sim style games. Obviously the Sims have been created prior to that, but Sim style games online, monetizing those to a larger audience, and other different gameplay styles that became appealing to different. In other words, it showed there were different gameplay audiences that were out there, and so what that meant for us, if you think about you're telling biblical stories or Christian messages, harder to do that in a first-person shooter. A lot better fit, right, to use more of the sim-based or quest style. So as I'll give you an example, we built this, our most successful game at Lightside was called Journey of Jesus. And we had millions of people play it around the world, and you literally played the gospel. Now, you didn't play Jesus because that would be like, kind of game over, you win. But it was more like you played a character that followed him. So, for example, you go to a wedding and there's this guy who's totally stressed out and he says, what am I going to do? And you go off and talk to a woman in the background. And she says, well, go meet my son in the courtyard. You meet this man who says, hey, go grab some water jugs. You get the water jugs, you bring it back to him. He says, now go fill up the water jugs. And then he turns the water into wine. And so there's a lot of games, like you think about Diner Dash. And again, a lot of the sim style games, Heyday did a good job of this with things like appointment mechanics, things like task driven games that get people to there's tasks and things they like to do that played really well into telling more explicitly biblical and Christian style narratives that fit in with the stories that we wanted to go tell.
Yeah. And the coolest thing about this is that you don't have to hand someone the Bible to learn the stories. They just go, I learned that in my video game, and that's where I learned it from. And the other thing is that this isn't only just Christian people playing, right? You said you found...
we had 7 million people play our games, and we surveyed them, and a third of them weren't Christians. Because, well, the thing is, we think we like to think we produce very high quality products. I think they were good. I'll tell you, I think the stuff we're doing at TruPlay is going to take it up to another level. But you produce a great product with stories. These are timeless stories, and these are people. Everybody's heard of a lot of these characters, and so there is an appeal to people, even if they're not regular Christians or churchgoers. And a lot of people just love a good story, and so we do maintain. We stay true to the biblical narrative and the heart of what God's of God's word, but we make the experience as entertaining and as fun, as exciting as we can.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that I've interviewed a bunch of different people, and a lot of people end up, even the ones around this like biblical nature, they always end up having so many more audience, such a wider audience than you would ever expect. Because when people go, oh, this is just a bit, not true at all. Not true at all. And I say this just because, I mean, I spoke to Brent for 30 minutes before this and I got excited, and we'll get into TruPlay, but I got excited and I bought some of the NFTs because I was like, I understand the concept. It's very interesting.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So what's going on at TruPlay?
Yeah. So what we're doing at TruPlay is we're building a platform, entertainment platform for kids and families to, essentially build content that's fun, that's beautiful, that's excellent, but it also contains God's truth. So we're building a bunch of video games inside this one app. So it's a subscription experience. It'll come out next year. Games, video content. We have an animated short we've already produced and other content on the way. You can see on our website at TruPlay.com. We'll also, inside the TruPlay app, we'll also digital comics. And so there's a lot of content for kids and also for families. And so where some of the characters, you can see my shirt. One of them is called Maple. She's one of our stars. Maple, as you can see, is a little girl who's a bunny rabbit that wears a tiger costume. And each of these kids kind of have their own personalities. So Maple's somebody she's not always right, but she's never in doubt. She's very strong in her faith and, believes in God with all her heart, but she also, she's not always interested in everybody else's opinion, and she's very headstrong and just plows ahead. And so she has this big narrative, epic adventure that she goes on. And there's other friends who she meets along the way who have their own backgrounds and their own stories inside what we call the Rimverse. And so the games contain their stories and their narratives, but each of these kids live in a world where God is real, the Bible is true, and God shows up for them. What we're really what TruPlay is about is bringing positive, excellent, fun content to a world where things have gotten pretty dark, especially for kids. And we want kids to know through the stories and through the content, through the experience, they're special. God loves them. There's hope. There's positivity. Their identity is who God says they are. They don't have to listen to the world's concept of who they are. And there's so much right now. Depression, anxiety, and suicide rates are all-time highs for kids. The average male is exposed to pornography when he's 11 years old in this country. 11 years old, which means how many kids are 7, 8, 9, 10? The one of the worst stats, while 62% of people in this country over 40 believe in God, only 32% of kids, because they're just bombarded with so many negative, toxic messages. And at TruPlay, we want to bring the light. We want to bring hope and positivity and really, bring this forward for the next generation.
Yeah. And that was one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, because what you're doing here is very interesting. Like, I don't know how many people, a lot of people have children. A lot of people might not have young children at this exact moment, but we've all seen them on an airplane where they just hand the kid the device, they get suction locked and the kid stops. That's a good thing, but it depends what's on the device.
Yeah.
Who are they talking to? Who are they with? What are they doing? And where did that passion really come for you? Because I know it's one of the things you're most passionate about is really being inside of the screen before the kids see it in the right way. That's
it's interesting. People sometimes confuse the medium and the message. You can watch, you can read a book and learn how to read. You can read the Bible, or you could, or you can read a book that, is full of pornographic, awful content, right? And so in the same way, you can play a video game that's really negative and awful. You can play a neutral video game, Candy Crush, Angry Birds, great. Or you can play, but nothing in those games are really growing you as a person or edifying your soul. Why I'm passionate about this is I have children, and I have a lot of nieces and nephews who I really love, and just I think it's funny when you talk to people and you ask them their life story, and if sometimes they have trauma, they have hangups, they have things in their past, and it's often, well, my parents did this to me, and the parents did this to me, and we all know those stories, and I understand those experiences and those points of view. But then you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, we're the adults now. So right, we're the ones who are responsible for this next generation. And, I think it's interesting if you take a step back and you said, well, if you came from another planet, if you came from the planet Mars, you would hear people say, if you surveyed them, oh yeah, if they have kids, the most important thing in my life are my kids. People will tell you that. But boy, if you wound up in our society and you had no prior experience with American culture, you sure wouldn't. That isn't what you think. I mean, when you look at, again, like, suicide, anxiety, depression rates, and, porn exposure and all kinds of awful stuff that, are getting thrust on kids, doesn't really feel that way at all. So I think it's our responsibility to do what's best, for the next generation, to steward the next generation. Think about, in my life, people talk about the greatest generation were my grandfather's generation, my grandparents, right? The ones who fought in World War II. If you know people, most of them have passed on, of course, but you talk to people who lived through that time, whether it was the men fighting in the war or women went to work in the factories because there was, they all had to, or how they raised kids, and everybody kind of collaborated to battle what was an existential crisis, which was, the German and Japanese conflict. And, today, and by the way, that was done not just, for the existence of society as we know it, and for the next generation. And in post World War II, we of course had a tremendous amount of prosperity and wonderful things that, happened in our country. We kind of lost that. And I think it's sad. And I really feel for children of today. And I don't see a lot of other organizations at scale standing up for the betterment of children. And that's where our heart is.
Yeah. And that's one of the most impressive things, because I literally sit here and I think about it, and you're like, the aliens come down, they look at us. What do they see? They see people working hard. They don't know, because the kids they're with their parents at points, but they're not like the whole day. They go to school. The parents make them food. They might have dinner together. They might watch TV or do something, have an outdoor activity. And then it's like, go to bed, or I'm just going to my room. And if you're there before they go to their room where they can see the screen, and now they're playing TruPlay, and now they have these good lessons, that's crazy. That's good. Like, I see it all, and it makes sense, because you're being there before they're even there. Like, before they get to the point where they're taking out their device, you're already on their device with the proper message and the proper stuff. Because if you just watch the news all day, and what it really made me think about is, like, who are the 5 people we spend the most time with?
Yeah.
And when you think of that, most people don't acknowledge the fact that it's podcasts, TV shows. There's your friends, yes, but right now I'm in Florida and you're in Texas. Like, that's not the same place. Like, we're in different places, but I still consider us talking right now.
Yes.
And you have to realize that who we spend time with matters. Who we listen to matters. Who we read matters. So if they're consuming these characters, and now you have Maple, and then you have Lucas, Isabella, and Ava, those are good friends to have if the kid feels alone. So
absolutely. I feel like, look, the Bible says the eyes are the window of the soul. And any of us can say, as you grow up, it really is true. I think you were alluding to the principle that, like, you're the summary of your 5 friends, or that whole principle, right? And I think there's some real truth to that. The concept that you really are influenced by who you're around. You're influenced by the message you take in. You can, and we've all seen that growing up, you start to talk a certain way. In fact, it's interesting. Children's accents usually come not from their parents, but from their peers. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Think about, right? Think about people,
spend more time. Yeah.
who are, so, and that's true in most societies across the world, so we pick up these things from our friends, right? The way we speak, the words we use, obviously the fashion preferences tend to happen from peers, right? More so. And so, to your point, I do think, the content we take in, here's a couple interesting statistics. The average child is on a screen in America 52 and a half hours a week.
He's working full time.
Right, exactly. And then some, right? Overtime pay. And the problem is so much of the content they're taking in is so toxic. Look, I'm not, there's a lot of games that are totally fine. I obviously play video games myself and enjoy certain TV shows, but there's so many things where it's gotten dialed with so much inappropriate content for kids, with so much, again, making light of teen suicides and, playing on, bullying and cruelty and, a lot of sexual exposure for kids and things. And so the point is, all those messages start to kind of twist what people believe, what their values are, and how they see who they are and how they, and so then you also look at the other stat that because less than half of Americans go to church for the first time in decades and decades, you're getting very little of God's truth anywhere for most children today. And so, that's again, we think it's so important for kids to hear that they're loved, that they're special, that they're, God has a plan for them. There's real truth and hope and light in the world. And hopefully, these characters are people they can relate to, as well as characters that, they can potentially aspire to. When I was a boy, I loved, Luke Skywalker and Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. That was it, man. And when you think about it, those were really positive role models for a young boy, right? Luke Skywalker wondering what the real story with his background is, but knew that he had more to his life, than his humble beginnings, and then learning this discipline and then standing up. When Empire Strikes Back, he makes this fateful decision, like, I got to go stand up for what's right to defend my friends, even if it's going to cost me my own life, right? Yoda and Obi-Wan basically tell him you're probably going to get killed, and he says, no, I got to do it, right? Or Superman, right, where Christopher Reeve's Superman version, where he's truth, justice is the American way. Hey, I'm going to go stand up for what's right. I'm going to go, even if it's self-sacrifice. That Superman 2, which I think is one of the very best superhero movies of all time, he's in love with Lois Lane, but he realizes like he's the only one that has the ability to defend Earth against an existential crisis, and he has to walk away from the love of his life, right? So for us, I don't see a lot of role models in entertainment for kids anymore. Yeah. We don't have those same things that kids can aspire to. And so, some of our other characters in the Rimverse, there's a character called Lucas, and he's a skunk who wears a crocodile robot costume that he invented. So it shoots laser beams and it flies. And he's more of an inventor. He's a little quieter. And he's actually a little bit on the spectrum. And he's lost his brother. He lost his brother about a year ago. And so he has some real questions like, where is God in all that? And how can I kind of, what does that mean for me? And where is he? And all those kinds of questions. There's another girl who's a character named Ava, and her parents are divorced. And that's, for those of us who have lived through that is not an easy thing. And so she has to move houses. So she's moving houses, frequently from one parent to the other. And she has a hard time articulating that. And she's also getting bullied. And so she has to learn through her journey that you're not who people say you are. You're not who the world says you are. You're who God says you are. And she has to learn to stand up and fight and defend herself. And so there's another character we have called Benjamin, who's a Wolverine that wears a hockey. He's a hockey player. So he's always up for the, punching the bad guy in the fight and wants to defend the younger kids. So there's characters in our world, in the Rimverse at TruPlay, who have their own backgrounds and their own journey. Some of them have circumstances that aren't great circumstances they came from, just like most of us in the real world. But then showing kids, okay, the meaning of courage, the meaning of virtue, the meaning of self-sacrifice, right? The meaning of standing up for what's right, even when things are working against you, rather than going along and getting along.
Yeah, I love that you built each character so then different kids can align with different characters as they grow and they see what these people can be like. Oh, this guy is who I am. This girl is who I am.
Yeah.
And they see that in themselves and they see how it's possible. I think that's incredible. Now, I know you're on the cutting edge. NFTs. What is that? What does that even mean for the people that might want to get more involved?
Oh, just what are NFTs in general?
Yeah. What are NFTs in general? And then what did TruPlay do with them?
Yeah. So for those who are newer to the crypto space, maybe a little bit of backup. We spent the beginning of the interview talking about Web 1, just basically the beginning of the internet. Web 2 is generally thought of as mobile and social. So the explosion of, actually having smartphones with rich experiences, as well as everything that happened in social networking. These are rough terms. And so Web 3 is really crypto and the metaverse, the next wave, which we're still in the early phases of. So from our standpoint, about NFTs are very fascinating technology where you can own a piece of content that you can validate that you own it. And so maybe to give a metaphor, if you owned an original sketch of Daisy Duck from the 1950s that the artist at Walt Disney originally drew, or if you owned a Mickey Mantle rookie card, each of those pieces of content would be worth millions of dollars to you, right? The problem is you'd have to fly to a city you probably don't live in to meet somebody you probably don't know to validate that those are real and they're not forgeries. Yeah. The blockchain can validate that your NFT is a legitimate piece of content instantly, first of all. Second, it can, there's a lot of utility and functionality that you can build into the token. So you can use NFTs in games, you can use them to vote. One of the things that we did with our community, and we'll continue to do this with our NFT holders, so that I described some characters in the Rimverse. So there was a character, we had his biography written out and his age, so his story, but we didn't know what animal he was going to be or what costume he would wear. So for example, Maple's a bunny rabbit in a tiger costume, and Lucas is a skunk in a crocodile robot costume. We let people vote. Well, what do you guys want Noah to be? So Noah's 12 years old. He's in adventure sports, longboarding and rock climbing and skydiving, those kind of crazy stuff. He's good at his brothers are good at academics, but he's not. So he's got to kind of find his own path. But he's a strong kid and he's protective of the little ones. So we said, hey, you guys vote. We went to our community. You guys vote. What animal do you want him to be and what costume should he wear? And we wound up with a kangaroo who wears a shark costume. But instead of it being a kind of a rubber shark, silly looking thing, it's a really stylized, kind of a stylized helmet with shark teeth and fins. So when he skydives, he's got shark fins and all kinds of cool stuff. So what the NFT allows you to do is let your community get involved in some of the choices. They get special access to things. They get, you can have people use their NFTs inside games. There's a lot of things NFTs can do, but they're essentially digital tokens of value that, people can hold. And like I said, the blockchain can quickly validate.
Absolutely. And the other really cool thing about NFTs is that if you believe in something, like if you think something's going to do well, like if I think Brent's going to come out with this software as he's said it's going to come out and the subscription base and people start buying into it, then people are going to be like, how do I get the memorabilia? How do I get the NFTs? How do I get ownership of this? And the value of those go up, meaning that you're making money while also being incentivized to be part of the community. And it really fosters an incredible community.
Yeah, that's right. It is really cool to be able to let people get in early. And one of the things we put in our NFT release, which we've been pretty transparent about, we've heard, I've been talking a lot today about content for children and needs from parents, because I hear this all the time. I'm talking to parents all the time. I'm listening to what they have to say. And a lot of people are, and again, the world's become a pretty dark place pretty fast from a social, cultural perspective. And so people are looking for this kind of a thing, for hope, for truth, and And so what's cool is what we said to people, look, if you buy an NFT, we get 10% anytime you buy or sell an NFT. So if you want to see great content, look, we have been well funded by some fantastic investors. However, there's always more capital we can keep using to build great products and spread the message. So if you're interested in getting involved, you buy an NFT, it actually helps support the business perpetually over time. So compare that, for example, you think about back to the Mickey Mantle baseball card, right? So Topps probably sold that baseball card for 5 cents back in the 1950s. Well, inside a pack for 5 cents. And today, I don't know what a Mickey Mantle rookie card's worth, but say it was worth $3 million. Well, if Joe sells that Mickey Mantle rookie card to Mary, Topps gets zero. Whereas if for an NFT, if whoever's NFT it is, turns into, X dollars, well, then whenever it's sold, TruPlay would get 10% of X perpetually. And so it's a way for people, again, to get involved and help support what we're doing.
Yeah. And Brenton, he explained it briefly, but that is very profound for TruPlay because now they're incentivized to make this as valuable as possible because if it's trading higher, then everybody wins.
Yeah, that's right. And, everybody wins. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I said before, I picked up 3 of them. I'm excited to see where it goes. And Brent, I know our time is running thin. So where can people find you? Where can they find TruPlay? Where can they start getting involved with the characters?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Just jump on TruPlayGames.com. We are launching the actual subscription platform next year, but you can sign up on email, get alerts. We have TruPlay on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Discord. And so we'd love to see you guys, jump on. We'd ask, give us your email so we can get you alerts and get you on board when we have the subscription service available. 2, we'd love to have you follow us on social media and spread the word. And the third one is for your listeners out there, keep us in your prayers. We're excited about what we're doing and appreciate everybody's support.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.